Hello fellow book readers, my name is John, and today we are going to go over part 5 of my top 50 favorite short stories of all time. So this is going to be the final part. I'm going to go over stories number 10 through number 1 here. In the other previous 4 parts, I did, numbers 50 through number 11. And I'll post all 4 parts of those down below. So in this video, I'll give you the title of the short story, the author that wrote it, where you can find it, where it was originally written in, and just like a short description of the story or summary. I'm not going to give too many spoilers. It'll be mild spoilers in this, if any at all. As always, this list will skew a bit on the fantasy side because I am mainly a fantasy reader, but there is a nice mix of genres here, I would say. So let's get started with the number 10. And my number 10 favorite story of all time is The Man in the Black Suit by Stephen King. The story was originally written in a 1994 edition of the New Yorker magazine, and it won the 1995 World Fantasy Award and the 1995 OHenry Award for short fiction. Today, you can more commonly find this story in the 2002 Stephen King collection known as Everything's Eventual. So this story is about a 9-year-old child named Gary who runs into a man in the black suit in the woods, and this man is widely implied to be the devil. Not even implied. He basically straight out tells you he's the devil. So, yeah. That's basically the plot of the story, really. As always, the devil is, of course, up to no good. Just straight up evil. This story gives up very, very... Like, when I first read it, this story gave up very, very strong vibes of The Devil Went Down to Georgia, the song by the Charlie Daniels Band. That was the vibes I got from the story when I was reading it. Now, it's not exactly the same as that. Obviously, there's no fiddler competition. And in that song, the man who challenges the devil is not terrified of the devil at all. Matter of fact, he says he's going to kick the devil's ass, basically. In this story, the child is very afraid of the devil, but it has all that same vibes of just meeting the devil out in the wilderness, and a younger person meeting the devil, and the devil obviously wanting to steal a soul. It has all those same vibes to it, and the theming of the story is how one traumatic event can shape the rest of your life, essentially. And it's also about innocence and trauma and things like that. I really love short stories with really powerful theming just because I think short stories is a great way to keep a thorough line of the theme throughout the story where it doesn't get lost. So yeah, I do love short stories specifically for that reason. In a lot of the cases, and I think this is one of those cases where the theming is top-notch, and I just think the creepiness is top-notch, prime Stephen King creepiness, and I do like a short story with the devil in it. I just think the devil's a very interesting antagonist. Not interesting, a very scary antagonist. Yeah, this story is definitely more of a horror short story than it is any other subgenre, but I think it really works. And it is my 10th favorite short story of all time. If we're keeping record, I also do happen to really love The Devil Went Down to Georgia by the Charlie Daniels Band. Okay, number 9 is The Tale of the Three Brothers by J.K. Rowling. This story was first included in the 7th Harry Potter novel, The Deathly Hallows, back in 2007. But you can also find it in The Tales of Beetle the Bard by J.K. Rowling, which came out, I think, in 2009 or something, which is a short story collection. So this story is about 3 brothers who run across death, or the Grim Reaper, whatever you want to call him, in the middle of the woods. I don't know why these stories are always in the middle of the woods, but they are. And they outsmart death, and the death grants each of them 3 wishes. Of course, the oldest brother chooses a powerful wand that can beat anybody, and this middle brother chooses a stone that can resurrect the dead, so he can talk to his dead wife. And the youngest brother chooses a cloak of invisibility so that death cannot follow him away from here. And the story is about which of these 3 gifts was the right choice, which brother made the right choice. I really just love the theming of this story, because the theme is that true mastery of death is accepting it. It's not trying to become immortal. It's immortality is inherently bad, right? That's pretty much the theme of the story. It's that everybody must die. Don't try to conquer it. Try to accept it. That's true mastery of it. I really, really enjoyed the theming here. I thought, just like in the previous story, the theming is from front to back of the story. The story is really, really short. Really, really short. But it has some great scenes in it, some great character work, some great action, and a really great setting. And I just really love that it connects to the Harry Potter universe overall. I was obviously, Harry Potter is what got me into reading when I was a kid. So I'm a little biased in terms of nostalgia for it, but this story rules, in my opinion. And if you can get the Tales of the Beetle the Bard, I would read that version of the story. It's the same story, but you get Dumbledore's notes after it on the story, which I think is just really interesting. Okay, number 8 is The Lesser Evil by Andrzej Sapkowski. The story was originally published in 1990, but is more commonly found in 1993's short story collection, The Lesser Evil. This is obviously a story included in the Witcher universe, so it is a story about Geralt of Rivera. In this story, Geralt must make a tough decision and abandon neutrality because this wizard, who is highly implied to be evil, is accusing this princess turned monster in his version of dastardly evil and cursing people and just murder in general, while the princess turned monster is accusing the wizard of conspiracy to kill children and just straight evil doing, basically, and believing in these crazy conspiracy theories. So Geralt, of course, must make the decision about whose side he's going to take, who's he going to hunt here. And in the end, he must choose the lesser evil, which is, of course, the theme of the story. The lesser evil. I love this story. Love this story. It has great action. I really like critical thinking. It makes you critically think. It has great dialogue. It has great character work. The pacing is phenomenal. And like every other story in the top 10, the theme here is top notch. Of course, it has sort of a tragic end to it too. It might be the saddest story on the list, but yeah, I highly recommend it. It's my favorite short story in the Witcher universe, and it might just be my favorite piece of literature in the Witcher universe, including the novels. I love this story. Okay, at number 7 is The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. The story was originally published in 2011 in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. This story won both the Hugo, the Nebula, and the World Fantasy Award for short stories. Just a top-notch short story. It really combines elements of fantasy and just general fiction, I would say. So this story is great because of the implied magic that you don't know if it's real or not, basically throughout the whole story until the end. The story is about a Chinese immigrant child who rejects his mother, who is an immigrant. So yeah, his mother is raising him as sort of a traditional Chinese child, right? And he loves that in the beginning of the story. But then he gets made fun of by other children his age for his toys, because his mother used to make him origami toys that seemed to come to life. And after he gets made fun of, he rejects that life. He rejects his mother. He grows very distant from his mother. He hates his mother, and he wishes she was more American. Of course, his mother eventually passes away, and then he has to deal with that grief and discover who he really is. And that's how I'm going to leave that. I'm going to let you read the rest and figure out the story, but I will say the end of this story made me bawl, cry my eyes out. It's so powerful, so good. The theming here again is just top notch, but really just everything about this story is a masterpiece. And this story could easily be number 1 on my list. I'd say every story from here on out could easily be number 1. I love this story. It's so great. And you can more commonly find it now in 2016's Ken Liu short story collection called The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories. I recommend picking that up for sure. There was a few other stories from that collection on this list, but almost every story in that is great. So, yeah, one of the best short story collections I've ever read. And I'll probably do that video one day where I rank all the short story collections I've read. But yeah, I love that one, and this is the highlight story from it, for sure. Don't read it if you don't want to cry. I promise you, you will cry. Okay, number 6 is a classic. That is The Gift of the Magi by OHenry, first published in the newspaper in 1905. This story is about a poor young couple who sacrificed their most prized possession to buy each other a Christmas gift. It sounds so simple, but I promise you, the messaging here is just really, really powerful. The theming here is really, really powerful. The character work here is top-notch. If you like a Christmas story, you're going to love this. This is just a story that has stayed with me since I first read it. Yeah, I just really, really enjoy this story. It's a classic for a reason. I'm not going to talk about too much more about it because this is a story almost everybody has read in their life and most people know. But yeah, this story's awesome. Just definitely check it out. It's a classic that still holds up today. Okay, at number 5, we're entering the top 5. At number 5 is 1408 by Stephen King. First published in his 1999 audiobook only short story collection called Blood and Smoke, but more commonly found in 2002's short story collection known as Everything's Eventual. This story is about a struggling author named Mike Enslin who writes these basically cheap top 10 books that are called top 10 haunted houses, top 10 haunted hotels, top 10 haunted graveyards, stuff like that. And he's in the middle of writing one of these books when he gets a letter that tells him he has to go to the room 1408 at the Hotel the Dolphin in New York because it's, haunted. Of course, Mike Enslin doesn't actually believe in any of these stories. He's never actually found evidence that any of these places are really haunted. So what is going to happen? What's going to happen when he actually goes to a place that is haunted? This short story is great, 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 great. I love this short story so much. It's also very short, so you can read this very quickly. This is my favorite Stephen King short story. It's my favorite piece of literature that I've read by Stephen King so far in my Stephen King journey. There's also a movie based on this short story that I actually think is very good, that captures exactly what Stephen King was going for in the short story. Of course, there is some stuff added to that movie, but the stuff that's added is very much still in the same vein of the short story. But yeah, I love this short story. The highlight to me of this short story is the author, Mike Enslin, talks to the hotel manager before he goes into the room, because obviously the hotel does not want him to go into the room. The hotel isn't letting anybody into the room, but he uses a legal loophole to make them let him go into the room. So he has a conversation with the hotel manager, and that conversation is one of the best conversations that I've ever read. It's so good. So good. And they almost take it word for word in the movie, too, which is awesome. But the short story version of it is great. So great. I highly recommend reading this. Okay, at number 4 is With Morning Comes Mistfall by George R.R. Martin. The story was first published in 1973 in Analog Science Fiction and Fact magazine. You can more commonly find it today in Dream Songs Volume 1, which is a short story collection by George R.R. Martin that came out in the early 2000s. I do recommend picking up that short story collection. It's awesome. Top to bottom. Probably my favorite short story collection I've ever read. But this story is basically George R.R. Martin's Loch Ness Monster story. I love the Loch Ness Monster, so obviously I really enjoyed this one. It's a story about a scientist who goes to this planet to figure out the mystery of these wraiths that are going around killing people, supposedly. And the guy who essentially runs the tourism of the planet is trying to get the scientists to not explore it, basically. So it's basically a scientist versus a tourism guide. And the story is about the loss of wonder and mystery in the world. Just a really powerful theme, but it's done in such like a brilliant way that you don't even like see it coming. Like you're rooting for the hotel. I mean, not the hotel manager, the tourism guide the entire time, basically. But the scientist isn't a bad person. He just really isn't, and he's just trying to figure out what's going on, if it's real or not. And the scientist is honestly not the antagonist. He's still our protagonist, but there's conflicting emotions when it comes to him. And I think the story wraps up in a really beautiful way, even if it is a bit tragic. Yeah, I love the story. It's one of my favorite George R. R. Martin pieces. I think the story is very underrated. If there was like an overrated, underrated George R. R. Martin scale, this would definitely tip towards the underrated side. I don't see the story talked about by anybody, really. Love the story. It's number 4 for me. Definitely check it out, especially if you like things like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or Sasquatch. This story is worth checking out. Okay, and now we go on to my favorite George R. R. Martin short story. Coming in at number 3 is Bitterblooms, which was first published in 1977 in an issue of Cosmo's Science Fiction and Fantasy magazine. You can more commonly find it today in Dream Songs Volume 1. Again, pick up that short story collection. It's totally worth it. This story is about our protagonist, who is this girl surviving this harsh winter on this winter planet, and in order to do so, she stumbles across a spaceship. Of course, she doesn't know it's a spaceship. We as the reader don't know it's a spaceship, but she survives in this spaceship with the help of basically the guardian of the spaceship. Really, really interesting stuff. It has just some great character work. I think the protagonist is just like this awesome character. It's a really awesome coming of age story. I think the guardian of the spaceship is a very interesting character. Is she an antagonist? Is she a protagonist? What is she? I'll leave that up for you to decide. I think the twist ending is just perfect. I really love the imagery of the story. There's this like blue flower that like survives through the winter, and it just like explains everything. Yeah, I love this story front to back. It has some great action because the beginning of the story, like the story's only like a 2-act short story, but the first act is like her just like out in the wilderness in the snow. Is she gonna survive? She's being chased by monsters. It's perfect. Trust me, you're going to love this story, and I do think this is the most underrated George R. R. Martin work of all time. I said when Morning Comes, Mistfall is one of the most underrated. Bitterblooms is the most underrated. 0 people talk about this short story ever. This story hit for me like immediately when I read it. I loved it. Can't talk it up enough. It's number 3 for me of all time. So yeah, do check it out if you can. I think this is probably the most least known story in my top 10. Number 2 is The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, first published in 1846. So this is a classic revenge story. I'm sure you read this in grade school somewhere. It's really creepy. Again, Edgar Allan Poe is the master of horror, in my opinion, the king of horror, whatever you want to call him. I'm not really a horror reader. I read more horror when it comes to short stories than I do like novels. But this one is a story that stuck with me ever since I first read it. I think it's like the best revenge story ever written. It's so scary and like so heartless and cruel and creepy, and yeah, you would never ever root for our main character Montrezor. Like, he's just not a good person. He's awful, terrible human. Yet you're stuck in his head the entire time, and the story just keeps getting creepier and creepier the farther it goes on, as he plots his revenge and takes Fortunato underground and tricks him while looking for the wine. Like, it's just terrifying the entire time. And the end will make you scream out in front. And yeah, I don't know why this story is just number 2 for me. It's the story that sticks with me the most. Like, I can remember everything that happened in this story. Yeah, just easy number 2 for me. Edgar Allan Poe, awesome short fiction writer. Definitely buy a short story collection of him. There's like a million out there. All his works are public domain now for the most part. I think, not for the most part, I think all of them are actually public domain at this point. So yeah, you can just read them online if you really feel like it, but definitely just buy a short story collection. Okay, and number 1 is another story I read in grade school way back in the day. It's a classic for a reason, I think. It's The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell, first published in 1924. It's a story about our main character, Sanger, who falls off a yacht and swims to an island, and he becomes the prey for this Russian aristocrat who pays to hunt humans. And he must survive a 3-day stay on this island. And there's just a lot of action, a lot of tense moments, a lot of great conversation, a lot of terror and horror in it as well. And the theming here, the morality of hunting, is, I think, really well done. There's just nothing to not like about the story. It's entertaining to read from front to back. It has a lot of like tense moments in it, a lot of good action, a lot of good critical thinking skills, a lot of good character work. Everything about it, I think, works really well. And yeah, it's another one that I can remember like front to back, everything that happens in it. And I read this story 25 years ago. So yeah, just an awesome story. And it is my favorite short story of all time. That doesn't mean it's objectively the best story of all time. My top 10 is not objective in any way. It's just my favorite short stories. So that is the end of this list. That is my 50 favorite short stories. And in this video, I went over 10 through number 1. Again, let me know down below what your favorite short stories are. Let me know if you've read any of my top 10. Let me know what you think. And I will say, if you haven't checked out short stories, or if you're not a short story reader, or if you've never read short stories before, do give some short story collections a chance. Short stories are a great way of reading fiction. And like I said, they do some things better than novels, especially in the theming department, in my opinion. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching.